That's
There
good.
we go.
I'm good. I'm perfect.
All
That's
right.
fine. Mhm.
So, as we've kind of finished up, sharing strategies and different things that we could use across campus, as a team to improve student learning, also the culture and things along those lines, we decided to focus on active listening. Active listening was something that we felt could reach all of the different groups within the campus, whether it be middle school, elementary school, high school, all of the different student levels. When we were making that decision to pick it, we decided we wanted to pick something that could affect everybody. So when we were going through active listening, the way that I decided would be the best way for us to follow it would be using our on-task points and our point sheets to measure if students are actively listening in the class and doing those things. So first, do you think we've done well as a team looking at point sheets and those reflecting active listening? So, anybody think that?
Yeah, I think with the point sheets, it varies, right? It always is going to vary based off of different things that are happening or different trends that we're seeing. Overall, I think still an area that we could improve upon.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, looking at the point sheets and being able to take the trends and the patterns that we see and having those discussions. So when we're talking about the active listening piece at this point with the point sheets, are we only talking currently about how we're
Teachers
recording?
and students, this is your 5-minute reminder. Your 5-minute reminder. Thank you.
Are we talking about how we're recording that from what we see in the classroom, from the students' perspective, or?
Right. So that was something that we both put in, and I thought it'd be important that it is an instructional strategy that is very important. But I feel like the more we've practiced it across campus, it can translate and correlate into the classroom and lead to student learning and student success. So yeah, we can look at it from both perspectives. We can look at it from directly in the classroom, or we can look at it from students in the hallway, lunchtime, getting into school, different things like that. I would say from me reviewing data and looking at other teachers and discussing them and observing them, the big thing I did see is with that student performance is pretty tied to that on-task piece and the active listening. The more on-task a student is, it was easy to draw a pretty direct correlation to that student performing well in the classroom. But yeah, I think, do you guys think that we're stronger in the on-task in the classroom compared to transitioning around? Do you think those are separated, or do you think they're integrated and tied together?
Well, I think that it's interesting because it's a little bit of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that there's the active listening part in the classroom, which is something as simple as listening when you're giving instructions so that the kids have a clear direction and they know where to go. And I think sometimes because our kids are not actively listening, they get stuck and then they have well, I don't know what to do, or, well, I just don't know. And that's really hard to redirect as a teacher because you don't know exactly where they're lost or exactly what they haven't picked up. And I think that that's something that we see a bunch from our kids, and that kind of prevents them from even sometimes initiating the work that they've been given or the learning that they're supposed to be doing. But then I also think that a place that we see active listening that it's not as readily apparent is when we have those kids that are having a really hard time just following instructions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that what happens is they're there and they're hearing you, but they're not really listening. They're someplace far away. They're, coming up with 15 arguments in their brain for why they shouldn't have to do what it is that you've told them to do. And so I think that sometimes if we can just get them to kind of center and to honestly be like, just listen to what I'm saying right now. Don't get 5 steps ahead. Just what I'm saying right now. But I think even on the behavioral side, it helps to kind of calm them down.
Yeah, I agree. And being at a disciplinary campus, the active listening is super important because a lot of times when we discuss active listening, it is more like, do you understand the content so you can go apply it somewhere else? And sometimes with these students, it's, do you understand the instruction so you can complete what is being asked of you? And I think the more emphasis we put on task points and students earning those points or students not earning those points from not listening and not participating has showed a little bit of difference. I know specifically in classrooms that I monitored, English and math, they're pretty accurate about being on task points of making sure those students are on task. And when they, mark a student is on task, there's a direct correlation to their success in that classroom. And the students who are struggling on task, they also struggle behaviorally as well. Like there's that large correlation between the two. So, kind of to keep moving from there, what are?
Let me ask something real quick. So, because we know that active listening in and of itself is important, and we all agree that it's important in all aspects. So when we look at that and want to break it down and analyze it or track it or do whatever we're going to do with it so that we can replicate it if we see it's working, or find out the pieces that aren't, we need to identify, first of all, are we going to categorize it as times we're going to be requiring or focusing on it, groups of people, for example. Do we want our students to be active listeners? Sure. What about our teachers? Yeah, our parents, all those involved. And what does that look like of each group? So we need to kind of figure out how we're going to track that. If we're going to track it as groups of time, groups of people, how do we want to look at that and analyze that?
As of right now, we're analyzing just the students through the on tasks points and then the correlation to their performance in the classroom, which is our best indicator of student learning, right? Is what are assignments are they complete, what grades are they earning on assessments, whether they're formal, informal, whether it's a formative assignment, whether it's a summative assignment, whatever's taking place with those. So I think that really is the goal.
So when we started this process, right, we talked about where does it start, and I think we all agreed, and this has been as of kind of for a while now, we have to model that because we can't control it until we ourselves are doing it. Right. So we're modeling that behavior. We're modeling, showing the kids this is what active listening is. And sometimes it's us talking our way through it so that they understand this is what I'm hearing you say. So it's modeling that and making it just a part of how we are as our climate and culture goes as teachers and staff. And I agree with you. I think that's where it all started. And I think it took some time, and now I see it starting to bleed over into the students. Right.
I agree.
Even from the morning announcements and the doing all that. You guys are doing other things at times, but I see the students actually taking the time to sit, to listen, to ask questions, things I was not seeing a year ago even. Yeah. And we could say it's just this one group of students, but we keep getting new students, and they seem to be following suit. Right. So I feel like it's bleeding over into the climate and the culture of the building and the program based on the work that we've put in for us as modeling it and making it part of how we deal with the kids, and now they're starting to see and kind of do as well. But yeah, I think that the point sheet's a great way and are a good indicator, because we do see when kids come in and they're not doing those things in the room, they're not being good citizens, they're not getting their work done. A lot of times is because they're not listening and doing the things that they need to do, and sometimes they're not understanding. Or I didn't hear him say that. I get that a lot. Right. I didn't hear him. He didn't say that. I didn't hear him say that. I was standing right there. I heard him say that. But it's kind of like what you were saying. They're hearing you, but they're not actively listening to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of moving on from this, in this process, what would be a better way to really improve active listening across the campus outside just analyzing point sheets? Or is there something I could have done from a facilitator point of view that could kind of increase active listening as a campus, or any type of collaborative mission? What is something that I can kind of lead in a better direction?
I think that one of the things that's been very successful when it comes to active listening, and it seems kind of trivial, but is the backing down and the repetitive nature of things. I remember listening to this podcast about Blue's Clues, and they said that one of the things that they learned about it was that, like, having the 3 clues that they talk about and they come back to the whole time, that really helped kids' brains to be able to anticipate what was going to happen. And I think that sometimes with our kids, unfortunately, a lot of them have not had a lot of academic success, and I think that they're, generally speaking, right, more used to being the ones who aren't really on top of what's happening and what's going on, whether that's behaviorally or academically. And so the fact that we are very clear cut with things, we have our motto that we say every morning. When it comes to the rules at lunch, we're very straightforward with expectations. Those things are the same, and we say them over and over again. I think that the kids respond positively to that, because it's kind of like, oh, like I know what they're gonna say, right? Like I know what these rules are, and then I think it's easier for them to follow those things. It's easier for them to feel like they're a part of the conversation because we might have had to say it multiple times, but it's just that reinforcement. It's just that structure. It's that kind of reassurance that like we have a plan and this is the way that it is, and I think that that gives them a feeling of comfort, so I think that that's a big thing, and I think the more that we keep that up and like Kyle said, kind of model that as a staff, I think that just improves our climate overall.
Yeah, I agree. I believe repetitiveness and consistency would be our best keys in establishing new things across the campus. But all right,
I would say looking back, one of the things, if you're talking about areas of improvement or things that going on from here, maybe that we could change or tweak. I think if you ask the kid or kids, any student, and said, hey, what do you know about active listening? What does that mean to you? I don't know that they would have a good definition of that, or they've heard that term a lot because we have kids rotating so much.
Right.
And so just that constant and consistent reiteration of, hey, when we're listening to someone, we're active in listening, and almost setting up those expectations before we have those conversations so they know, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is what the expectation is for you as well. And this is what it looks like. I don't know that we do a good job of continuing to throw that verbiage out there or that explanation of what active listening is. So just keeping that phrase, that term out there so that the kids are, when they hear it, they're like, oh, I know what that means.
Right. I would agree. I think that's something that we could definitely continue to develop is even though that this collaborative kind of goal is done, it's something we can continue to build on even as we add new goals across the campus. So
yeah.
Perfect. All right.